Hi guys, welcome to the fourth episode of In the Spotlight, an Instagram live series where India's top athletes will be with us to motivate and inspire us. It's an honor to have with us today the first ever Indian female to break into the top 10 of the international squash rankings, as well as Padma Shri Awardee, Arjuna Awardee, Commonwealth Games medalist, and Asian Games medalist. Welcome, Dipika.
Thank you. Thank you for having me with it.
It's a pleasure. So, why don't we start off by hearing about how you started playing squash and whether you were interested in any other sports as you come from a family full of athletes.
So actually, I played tennis for about 2-3 years before I actually started playing squash. But before that, even I mean, because as you said, my full family we all took up sport in some way or the other.
Mhm.
So when I was in school, it just came very natural to me to be a part of any sport that was part of school. I would wait for the bell. I remember every Wednesdays and Fridays. I remember the PT class is the last class of the day, so I would wait for that class because I loved sport. I loved anything to do with sports. So it started at a very young age. It was very natural for me to pick up a sport. So I used to play tennis, and then I remember my grandmom took me off the tennis court saying that my granddaughter cannot become tanned under the sun. So I stopped playing, and then um, it was just one Saturday morning. My best friend and me, we both stayed in the same apartment. She was going for a squash camp, and usually Saturdays are usually our day where we can play with each other and do everything together. And I was really pissed off and angry that she was going for squash and leaving me. So I just joined her, and that's how I actually took up the sport.
That's really interesting considering you gave up tennis to not sort of be in the sun, but then
I
eventually,
taken off tennis. I didn't give
yeah.
up tennis.
Okay, sorry.
Tennis court.
And then I think at a very young age you also moved to Egypt, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that that would have been really hard for you as a young teenager. And what sort of challenges did you face, and how did you cope with them?
See, I think at the age when I was, I think probably 13 when I moved to Egypt. I think at that age uh, you don't really think about living alone. You don't even think about the aspect of going to a new country. It's always
Mm,
exciting for you to get on a flight when you're 13 years old, and that's what you look forward to, right? And that's what I did. But it never really struck me that this was going to be my life. Like, it never
yeah,
struck me that, I was going to Egypt. Yes, I knew I was going to Egypt to train, but it never struck me that, oh, this is how I'm going to build my squash career where I have to be based in Egypt. I was just a 13-year-old, excited to get on a flight and excited to play with the Egyptians. So that
yeah,
was my only thinking then. But I think I keep saying it was scary. Yes, of course it was scary. I was 13 years old, a
yeah,
girl living alone in Egypt I had no clue. I didn't learn Arabic. I didn't know Arabic. I didn't know my way around. But I
yeah.
think I was so excited, and I think it's definitely made me who I am today because of the I won't call it struggles, but I'll probably say experience. I think the
Mhm.
experience uh, that I had in Egypt, just doing everything by myself and everything. I think that's what has made me who I am today, maybe.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I'm sure it would have helped. But what sort of advice would you give young players who want to take that leap of faith of taking the game to the next level? As you said, irrespective of whether they want to go professional or not, is maybe a decision they would not make at that young age.
See, I think uh, for any athlete, the transformation from junior to senior,
Mhm.
or when you're 40 or 50 in the world, to break into the top 20 or the top 10, I, I would say you probably need people around you as well as yourself to take bold decisions. I think
Mhm.
we as Indians, we uh, try and follow the comfort zone. I think
Yeah,
we tend to think where we just settle for comfort more than sacrifice. And I think at that age, I was probably very young for me to even decide what I wanted to do. I think my
yeah, for
parents
sure.
decision of me going to Egypt. But I think for any transformation to happen, be it seniors to juniors or whatever it is, I think bold decisions need to be made. And I think regardless of, oh, how are you going to make sport a career, or how are you going to, you have to go to university, you have to, give up your sport anyways, and then when you're 16 and go to university. I think regardless of all that, I think important decisions have to be made at some point of time. And I think I was very lucky to have had the freedom to make my own decisions, be it I didn't want to uh, go and study in America, I didn't want to go and study in UK. I knew that I wanted to professionally play squash, and I knew that I wanted to uh, I knew that I wanted to study, but I wanted squash to be ahead of my education. So, so for me to take those bold decisions when you're 16, and for a sport like squash, which we didn't know even had a future. So I think bold decisions have to be made, and I was very lucky to have had the support from a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I think the support of people around you, as you said, and also taking these bold decisions would have surely helped you move on to your senior days. But in 2010 and 2011, you started knocking on the doors of the international senior circuit, I would say, when you won bronze at the Asians as well as three PSA titles. So what do you think really changed for you mentally over then, or did any sort of change occur then?
I think 2010 and 11, I was just moving in, I think, from my juniors to my seniors, but I was already playing the circuit. So I started playing the senior circuit when I was, 14, 15 years old, because I knew that
Wow.
when when I was properly a senior, when I didn't have a junior career anymore, when I was properly a senior, I wanted the transformation to be easy.
Yeah.
So that's why I started the senior career at a very young age, regardless if I lost, if I didn't get into tournaments. That was not the point. The point was just to mix around with the seniors, get a little bit of their experience, and the easy transformation when I eventually become a proper senior. So I think I started playing the senior circuit very early, and I was already around, as they say, I was already around in the senior circuit. But I think 10 and 11 is the time that I'd actually just gotten off juniors, and then I was a full-time pro. So I was literally traveling in and out every week. I was already based, I think I was based in either England or Australia then. So, I hardly came back home. It was just me living off a suitcase. So for me, to justify all that, I think it just motivated me to try and do my best. And I was enjoying squash. I mean, when I'm 20, 21, I think that's the best time to enjoy the sport. And you're traveling alone, you're doing stuff alone. So I think that's what I really enjoyed.
For sure, for sure. I think that responsibility that you sort of have to take at some point when you go into the seniors is something that surely motivates you. But how do you sort of prepare for big events? And is there anything you also do to unwind? Because that's important as well.
Uh, I think uh, See, the big events for us are usually the Commonwealth and the Asian Games, which happen every 4 years. Uh, so it's a very different, how do I say it? It's a very different goal, or it's a very different tournament to prepare for, because it's once in 4 years. How do you peak at that time, right? How do you train for 4 years and land up at the Commonwealth and Asian Games and expect to do well, right? So I think that's our biggest goal for squash players, because unfortunately we're not part of the Olympics. So the only big tournaments are the Commonwealth and the Asian Games. But I've always said this to myself, and I've always made sure that I follow it, that to treat any tournament like it's a normal tournament, because you train so hard, you go in with so much expectations at the Commonwealth Games and Asian Games, that expectations sometimes bog you down. So I think
Mhm.
for me, it's always been important to treat any tournament, be it a world championship, be it an Asian Games, or be it even the Commonwealth Games finals. I literally walked into the Commonwealth Games finals like it was like the first round of an event, because
Yeah.
I kept telling myself, I knew that, squash players, we don't get much attention. We only get attention during the Commonwealth and Asian Games, where everyone says, oh, we're medal hopes, or these two are going into the finals, or they made it to the finals, so we only get that attention once in 4 years. So there is a lot of pressure that comes with being a Commonwealth game and an Asian game final. So for me, it was very important to approach every tournament like it's a normal tournament. If I lose, it's not the end of the world. I have another tournament that I have to go the next week. So I start preparing for that. So I've always taken it a way that every tournament is like another tournament. Every round is like the first round.
Indeed, no, that's a very good approach. But regarding the more technical and tactical sides of it, how do you sort of periodize your training to ensure that you peak at the right times?
See, I think for that I have a team. I think
okay.
It's very important to surround yourself with people who are very well educated in each field. So I have a trainer, I have a physio, I have a nutritionist, I have a mental coach, I have obviously my squash coach. So the last thing you want to think about is trying to schedule yourself in, trying to think, oh my God, how am I going to peak in the next 2 years of the Commonwealth Games? I have to put in more effort. So I feel like as an athlete, I already have so much going on in my head that the reason why I have this team with me is for them to do this job for me. So for me, it's always been about trusting my coaches, trusting my team, trusting my support staff, because I know that they are the best at what they do. And I just try to concentrate on getting on court and winning the matches. So I think that's very important for an athlete, because you're mentally already going through so many things, right? There's so many thoughts going on. The last thing you want to think about is, I need to get faster. So you go to your trainer and you're like, get faster, but this girl is faster than me, she does this and I do this and she does it. So it doesn't work like that. That's why I say that it's very important to surround yourself with an amazing team, and I think they take care of everything.
That's true. And even though, as you said, squash is an individual sport, or any other individual sport, having that team around you sort of alleviates you from the pressures that you're already facing. So now that we're sort of a little bit through the interview, and let's start with a little bit of more the fun side of it. So we're gonna do the rapid fire now. What does squash mean to you in one word?
Life.
Okay. If not for squash, what would you be doing right now?
I would have played a sport. I would probably go back to tennis.
Tennis, okay. 3 words every athlete should keep in mind.
Belief, sacrifice, and belief. I think belief is very important.
Okay, belief twice. The most discussed topic at your dinner table?
The most discussed. It's definitely not sport, because we're very conscious about not talking about sport. So it probably be like, not during these times, obviously, but a general conversation when we are both home will be, when's the next holiday? I'll be like picking him. I want to go on a holiday. I want to do this. So it's basically one of the things.
Okay. South Indian food or Arabic mezze?
Oh, South Indian food.
South Indian food, okay. Summer in Egypt or India?
India. India is home.
India's home. Okay. Favorite thing to watch in your free time?
So not recently, but during this lockdown, I have been hooked on to Korean shows. So my full Netflix, like, how you have suggestions and how you have, it's literally everything's Korean. So it's like, this is my 5th show. I'm on my 5th show and I binge watch. Like, I literally binge watch. So my new thing is of all these Korean shows. It's
actually very interesting. Just the other day, I saw that even another female Indian athlete, Ashwini Ponappa, was saying the same thing.
Oh, really?
That she really likes watching Korean shows.
You've been home for the last, 8 to 9 weeks, right? And all you've done is obviously worked out, you've kept yourself busy, but you eventually go back to the TV and switch on Netflix or Prime. So it's like you've
Yeah.
done all the movies. This is what's left.
Okay. Who fell in love first, you or your husband?
Oh, I would say my husband. He was behind me.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay. What would you do if you woke up as the following people? Serena Williams.
Oh, I would never go back to sleep.
Okay, awesome. Uh,
Back
Rajnikant.
if I woke up as Rajnikant, I would go and spend the day with my husband because he loves Rajnikant.
Okay, I think everyone's a Rajnikant fan. What would you do if you woke up as Priyanka Chopra?
Ooh, probably spend the day with Nick.
Okay. Okay. So I think now back to the regular questions. I think in the recent past of about 4 to 5 years, I think many things have changed in Indian sport and just the way people sort of think of sport in India. So what would you say about that, considering you are one of the top female athletes who's leading this hashtag girl or women power uh, motive around?
See, I think it's one thing to say that women are doing well or women need opportunities or give women more opportunities. I
Hmm.
think that's one side of it. But the other side of it is that women in India are actually doing well. You have
Yeah.
a number who was number one in the sport. You have Sanya, who was number one in the women's in the doubles. You have Mary Kom, who was there. So you actually have people doing well. So it's not just people saying that, oh,
Okay.
women are doing well, or women need that equal power, or uh, equal goals, equal everything. So I think what is standing out most is that we're actually doing it. We're not just saying it anymore, we're actually doing it. And I think that's what makes a very big difference, right? People want to see uh, they want to see results. They don't
Mhm.
want to see oh yes, I do want to become world number one. That is my goal. I do want to become the best in the world. We not we women, but women are going out and doing that nowadays. So I think that is the big change in the country, is that people are actually starting to believe that women can actually play a big role in this country as sports people, because we've seen it happening. So I think that is very important. I think what Sindhu's done, what Sanya's done, what Saina's done, I think it's phenomenal. And I think I personally take a lot of motivation from all of that.
You've always also stood up for equality, something which is very notable and brave. And if you could just tell our viewers what exactly that situation was and how things have changed ever since.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a conscious effort. I
Hmm.
think it was more of I was so when you enter a tournament, you obviously sign up. You sign up for the tournament, you sign up on the sheets and stuff. And I usually don't do that. My mom usually does that because I was traveling and it was just easier for her to handle my career then. But for some reason, I think her it didn't open up. Her page didn't open up. So I was supposed to sign up for the senior nationals. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I never read anything. You know how you have 3, 4
Yeah.
papers and all you do is go sign at the end. So that's what I usually do. But then I think the last line was the prize money, like the prize money for the tournament. And it said, oh, men's is, I don't remember the actual amount, but, just think men's were 1 lakh, the women would probably be 20,000 rupees. So it was like a drastic difference, right? So I was like, and it didn't really strike me. I actually signed the paper, if I'm not mistaken, and I said to my mom, you know what, I'll scan it or whatever and send it to you. And then I just generally just asked around, and they're like, yeah, it's been happening. It's not anything new. It's been happening, and it's not just been happening for the nationals. It's been happening for a lot of tournaments. So I was like, okay. So I think that's when I realized that why should I enter a tournament where I'm going to play? I might not, the men's draw might be 64 and the women's draw might be 32. that's not the point. The point is that I'm putting equal effort into my sport and what I'm doing on court. I'm spending as much energy as the guys on court. So why am I getting paid lesser than the boys? I'm still, if I reach the finals and so if the men reach the final, we're still going to go onto the same court, hold the same racket and play. So why am I getting paid less? So I think it struck me that as I said, it wasn't a conscious effort saying that, what, if I'm not going to play, they're definitely going to raise the prize money. It was never that. I didn't even think they were going to raise it. But ethically for me, it was like, this is wrong. I'm not going to be playing a tournament where they support men more than women. So it wasn't a conscious effort. It just happened like that. And I think the press picked it up and it was obviously blown. But next year it was equal prize money. So I guess it was a good.
No, for sure. As you said, I mean, the winner of the senior nationals is the winner of the senior nationals, whether it's men or women. So they should obviously be treated the same way. But back to the present. What would you consider as a productive day, and how has it sort of changed due to the lockdown?
See, a usual day for me is I train for squash. I train twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And then in between that, I try and fit in my fitness. So it's either gym or it's either running outside. So I do that. So around this, you work around on, trying to go meet your parents sometime or just unwinding. We're going to your sister's house or just chilling with friends. But it mainly consists of getting up in the morning, going for a run, coming back home, stretching for a little bit before I get on the squash court, and then come back, I eat, I nap, and then I go back to squash. So it's basically just around, you're literally driving in the squash court and driving off the squash court. So that's what my productive day I would call a productive day. But obviously during whatever's happening right now during quarantine, we've obviously not been able to get on the squash court. So I think the first few weeks, like I made sure that I worked out twice a day because I was like, okay, this is not going to last for a very long time. So I have to keep up my fitness and then, hopefully I can get on the squash court. But it obviously went on. So I think I think it was very important for me to just sit back and just take in these times because firstly, you don't get these times back. You're not going to get this much time at home. I'm not going to get this much time with my husband ever.
Yeah, for sure not.
So I was like, I might as well see the positives in this. So nowadays I get up, just do some stuff at home, cook lunch and then just eat together. So we've eaten together. I mean, we've eaten lunch on our dining table together 8 weeks in a row, which is like, it's like our dining tables does this much. So it's nice. It's nice to be back home. I know these are uncertain times, but I think it's very important for us to look at the positives. We always say that, I wish I could be home more. I miss home. So I feel like even though these are uncertain times, I keep saying that, I think it's important. Hi, Coco. Okay, sorry. My dog wants to be part of the interview.
We'd love for that.
Hi.
Hi, Coco.
So I think what I've done is try to spread out my things during the day so that I don't feel like I'm not doing anything. So I'm always doing something, and it's nice to just keep myself occupied in a way.
No, for sure. I think as athletes, being home for any amount of time is always a bonus, and you get to be with your family. You get to now I can see you get to be with your dog as well. So that's really good. But during these anxious times, do you have sort of any inspiration or a role model who you look up to, and what can you learn from them?
See, I think for me, when I started playing squash, also squash was such a new game for me. So I didn't know many squash players. I probably didn't even watch squash before I got on the squash court. But I had the privilege to train with a person called Sarah Fitzgerald, who was former world number one. She was number one for about 5 years. She won 5 to 6 world championships, and she's a legend in our sport. So I had the opportunity to stay with her and train with her for about 3-4 years when I was based in Melbourne. So I think for me to have spent that much time with her, not even on court but off court, to see what she is as a person, how she was, how she struggled, how during those times when she was playing, how squash was. I think I've definitely learned so much from her. And she's, she has that aura. All these world champions have that aura about them. And I think for me to be uh, with her, staying with her for 3 years and living under one roof, I've learned so much from her just with experience.
For sure, for sure. I think we're coming towards the end of it, but before that, I think we should just recognize a special fan who's sort of watching this right now. So if you have any question for anyone watching, and the winner would get a giveaway, the first person who replies in the comments.
Oh, should I do Puffy?
I
Should I
think
do
so.
it? So, so as you know, my family we're all athletes in some way or the other. But so there are, including me, 5, but excluding me, 4. There are 4 people who have represented the country in a sport in my family. So it's like either my immediate family, which like my cousins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think I've spoken about them in this interview. So if people listen to it, they'll get the answer right. So that's what it is. So there are 4 people in my family who've represented our country, India, in a sport. And who are
Okay.
they?
Yep. So guys, you heard that right. You need to guess the 4 different people in her family who have represented our country in various sports. So whoever gets that right will be the winner of this giveaway. I think this question is not as hard. But
Well,
let's see.
the
Let's
obvious. So I was like, okay, you can give points for this.
okay. So getting a few answers in cricket, her sister. Uh, yeah, there are lots of things coming in, but I don't think anyone's getting even remotely close to the answer.
So 35 Singh is kind of close. Yes, 2 more. Oh,
Hair Garage by
okay,
Natasha.
got it.
Yeah. Okay, we got the answer. Okay.
One of my best friends. So she's sneaky. She's not the questions.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so let's sort of go into the last bit of this. Cricket is considered a religion in India. What do you think other sports can learn from cricket?
I think the management. I think, I've never really, over the last few years, obviously me being with Dinesh, I've been more appreciative of the sport because I know what goes on behind the scenes. And more than jealous, I think we athletes are quite envious about
Yeah.
the competitors. I think that's the right word. So you knowing what goes behind the scenes, I think the management of the BCCI or whoever it is managing them, I think that's how sport should be managed. But unfortunately, we don't have that much of funds in a lot of
Mm,
sport for us to be managed like that. But that's how sport should go forward. I think
yeah.
to make it easier for athletes to, as I said, for the athletes to only think about what they have to do on court and everything else taken care of. I think cricket, the association, the federation, the BCCI, whoever it is, I think they do it brilliantly.
Is there any specific incident that you could mention of say something different that you find between cricket and your sport or any other sport that you think?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to compare an individual sport
Mm,
and a team sport and an individual sport and cricket. I think
yeah.
cricket's of its own, right? You can't compete with.
Yeah.
But I just think that the reason why obviously they're doing also so well is because of the sponsors that come in and because that's what the game brings. Uh, I also think that just like badminton, how badminton has become in the country. I talk about badminton because I think it's grown crazily over the last 4 to 5 years. I think the reason why it's become also so big is because there have been tournaments in the country. And I think that's what really appeals to the public, right? That, oh my God, a Sindhu is playing, let's switch on the TV and watch it. So I think it's very important that we um, we have a lot more events in the country, and a lot more big events as well as small events, because you do have your top 20 players, you have your top 10 players, but you also have your top 80 players, you also have that range. So I think it's very important for us to try and start having tournaments in the country, and I think pumping in money at those things, I think that will really help.
And I think other than that, obviously performances at big events like Commonwealth, Asians, and Olympics are always a boon for players. So we'd actually love to see you and squash at the Olympics. So how soon do you think squash would be added, and what's like
I
the procedure?
Help also, trust me. I think
Yeah,
all of us just, I think it's one thing being an athlete who plays the Commonwealth Games and the Asian Games, but it's definitely a whole new ball game when you're an Olympian, right?
yeah, for sure.
So uh, I think, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mixed up with the dates, I think we've lost out on the 2024 Olympics as well. So
Mhm.
basically, I think it was just one bid of 2020 and 2024. So we've lost out on that. So I think our next opportunity is only 28, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the work starts now. Obviously, to be part of the Olympics, you have to work as hard as all the other sports. But unfortunately, as I've always said this, it's not just about the sport at the end of the day, right? I don't think the Olympic Council really sees it for just that. If it was just that, we as a
For
sport of
sure.
squash would have been there in the Olympics way before a few sports. But unfortunately, it's not only that, and I think it's really helped our game as well, because at the end of the day, yes, you do want to be a part of the Olympics, which means that you have to come up with new technologies, you have to come up with new scoring systems, you need to come up with new squash courts. So I think over the last, say, 10 years, I think what squash was 10 years back to what it is now, it's definitely changed. It's definitely different, and it's a whole new game. So I think we've definitely grown because of this bid, and we will keep growing because of the bid. But we, at the end of the day, we have to remember that our sport is one of the best sports in the world, and it doesn't matter. We don't need a stamp from the Olympics. We don't need them to say, okay, you're an Olympic sport. We're already a fantastic sport, and we're an unbelievable sport. So I think we sit back with very proud that we are squash players, and squash is an unbelievable sport.
For sure, for sure. I think that that's something you surely can be proud of and should be proud of. And our next speaker on the series is Indian tennis icon Leander Paes. If you had
Okay.
the option to ask him one question, what would it be?
Firstly, I have to say thank you to Leanne. I think I've said this already, but I have to thank him because he's the reason why myself and Dinesh got tickets for the Wimbledon last year. So
Okay,
he was. So please thank him from
I
me.
will for sure.
Uh, but I think one question I probably ask Leander is, at this age and this phase of his career, how does he still have that motivation to get on the court and train day in and day out and still be the best in the world? I think, I keep telling myself, what, I have only 8 years more, I have only 5 years more, let's,
Yeah.
let's really hard. But he's obviously played at the highest level for so many years. So how does he find that motivation to keep going?
Okay. And in fact, our last speaker asked a very simple and short question to you, and I thought I should have maybe added it in the rapid fire, but I missed out. So Manika Batra asked you,
Hmm?
what is so special about your shoes?
My shoes. It's funny because I've only bumped into Monica during the Asian Games and Commonwealth Games, and I've only worn my Adidas sneakers, so I don't know what she's talking about. But I mean, I do love my shoes. I do love my bags. I have a little collection, but
Okay,
I'm. I think I'm someone. If I like something, I will buy it in every color.
okay,
So that's the secret. Maybe she's seen me wear something at some point, because I really have only seen Dipika during the Asian Games and Commonwealth Games, because we never, we never cross paths otherwise, right? So I don't know what I've actually worn in the Commonwealth Games, which I'm scared now, but I've probably only worn that sneaker. But yeah, I think I've been. I mean, I love my shoes and bags, and I have a collection, unfortunately, for my husband.
Well, it was truly a pleasure having you on the fourth episode of this show, and I think all of us, especially young female athletes, can learn a lot from you. So just thank you for joining us. It was really a pleasure.